The first time it whispered, I assumed it was the wind threading through old vents, a faint, scratchy murmur like nails brushing dry wood or pages flipping in a dusty book. It came from the wall behind my daughter's bed, subtle enough to dismiss, but strange enough to make me pause. Emily was asleep, curled like a comma beneath her blanket, her face ghost pale in the moonlight spilling across her pillow. I leaned closer, uncertain. The sound came again. Barely there, but unmistakable, just beneath the frequency of comprehension. "Bleib," it whispered, over and over. "Bleib, Bleib, Bleib." One word, soaked in something ancient. I didn't understand what it meant at the time, had no idea it would haunt me. No clue that it would mark the unraveling of everything. I should have taken Emily and left that night, but I didn't. We stayed. After the fire that gutted our apartment, after we lost most of what we owned, after the insurance payout that didn't come close to enough, we were desperate for a new beginning. The house in Auburn, Pennsylvania, was a foreclosure, isolated, underpriced, the kind of place people passed over for a reason. The shingles hung loose, the windows sagged, and the wood groaned under its own weight. But I told myself it had potential. I told my wife it could be a project, something we'd rebuild together. But she died suddenly, no warning, no signs, just a stroke in the kitchen one morning, 42 years old, and gone before we signed the final papers. Emily shut down after that. She didn't speak, didn't cry. She just drew, page after page, birds with hollow eyes, people with no mouths, houses with no doors. It was easier somehow to fix things than feel them, so I buried myself in the house. Spring came, and I started in the attic. The insulation crumbled at my touch, yellow, brittle, chewed through by decades of mice. When I cut into the drywall, I expected debris, dust, maybe a bird's nest, but instead I hit something soft, something wrapped in browned newspaper so old the ink had bled into its own history. April 1939. I peeled it back, and a small animal jaw, still furred, still wet, fell out and landed on my boot, where it sat upright, as if positioned deliberately. That was just the beginning. Behind every wall I opened, I found bundles, wrapped meticulously, stuffed with clove or rosemary or something metallic and bitter like blood. Some were bound with red thread, some with hair. Inside were bones, teeth, rusty nails, a child's shoe, a cracked porcelain doll head with pins stabbed through its eyes. 10 trash bags later, I hadn't even touched the basement. The smell lingered, sweet and sour, like rot sealed in a mason jar. A wrongness that seemed to pulse from the walls themselves. Mold spread fast, black and fuzzy, blooming in places I hadn't touched. I tried vinegar, bleach, chemical bombs, but it always came back, thicker, darker. Eventually, I sent pictures to a local historical society, half as a joke. A woman called me within hours. Her voice was flat, unreadable. "It's powwow," she said. "You've got Dutch hex magic in your walls." I laughed. She didn't. She told me about the Pennsylvania Dutch, German immigrants who settled in the area in the 1700s, and how some brought with them folk magic. Most of it was harmless, she said. Healing prayers, protection charms. But some wasn't. There were spells for binding, for blood rites, for anchoring things to names. "You found the bundles," she said quietly. "But they're not the problem. They're the warnings. What you need to worry about is the book." But I hadn't found any book. That night I dreamed of fire crawling up the walls, slow and deliberate, its flames whispering instead of crackling. And when I woke, sweating, heart hammering, the house was quiet, too quiet, save for a sound that didn't belong. Breathing, not mine, not Emily's. From inside the walls. The next day, Emily stopped drawing. She started humming instead. A single note, low and off-key, repeating endlessly. I found her sitting in the corner of her room, staring at nothing, the hum vibrating through her teeth. "What are you doing?" I asked. She looked up with eyes that weren't quite hers and said, "Practicing." "For what?" I asked, but she just tilted her head toward the wall, as if listening, and whispered, "For when she comes back." I didn't ask who she was, I should have. The crawlspace in the guest room had always smelled off, wet copper, cloves, rot, but now I couldn't ignore it. I pried it open with a crowbar and found another bundle, larger than the others, bound in black string and wax sealed. Inside was the book, handwritten, bound in leather that flaked like dead skin. The pages were brittle, smeared with symbols I couldn't read, except one. One page had been written recently, in red ink, in English. Emily's name was written in a ring, again and again, around a sigil shaped like an eye trapped inside a house. The spell was titled, Verbleiben, durch Namen, stay through name. I took it outside, doused it in lighter fluid, and lit a match. The pages blackened, then burned cold, blue fire curling the paper before it straightened and hissed like a snake. I heard a voice, not from the book, but from the house itself. It spoke German in a raspy groan, then let out a laugh, soft and wet, like something gurgling through a throat that had forgotten how to breathe. I buried the book deep in the woods. Came home shaking, my hands blistered from digging. Emily met me at the door and said calmly, "That didn't work. She's already inside." Then she turned and walked into her room. That night I heard her whispering through the wall, speaking in broken pieces, bargaining with someone I couldn't see, laughing when she was answered. I begged the historian to come. She arrived the next morning and stopped cold at the threshold, her face drained. "This isn't just powwow," she said. "It's older, blood binding. It feeds on memory. It roots in names." She asked to speak with Emily, and when she did, she spoke in German. Emily answered fluently. She's never studied German a day in her life. When I demanded to know what they said, the woman wouldn't tell me. "You need to leave," she said. I told her we had. The house had burned down 2 weeks earlier. That part is true. I'd lit the match myself, doused the floors, watched the flames consume the hallway, walked away and didn't look back. The house burned. But something didn't. We moved 2 towns over, into a rental we could barely afford, and for a little while, I believed we were safe. Emily started drawing again. Just one image, over and over. The house, not the old one, the new one, the rental. In each drawing behind the walls were eyes, dozens, then hundreds, watching, waiting. Then the smell came back. Not strong, just a whiff. In the vents, in the corners. I checked the grate in her room and found something jammed behind it, wrapped in fresh newspaper, still damp. I opened it. Inside was a photo of our new house. On the back, in red crayon, one word was scrawled, Bleib. If you ever hear your name spoken from inside a wall, don't answer. If you find something wrapped in newspaper behind your vent, don't unwrap it. And if you hear the word Bleib tonight, check the date. If it's tomorrow's, it's already too late. Like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments where you're listening from and what's behind your walls.